I think I'll be a little briefer than 20 minutes. I simply just discuss how I started this work and the plan of the book and how it turned out to be something that I have not expected in the beginning. I think the book is a response to the global endeavor um, trying to move beyond the mainstream international relations, which has been quite colonial or even still colonizing in the sense that it silenced a lot of voices coming from different parts of the world. Most of it has been colonized before. So I joined the endeavor of this trend to retrieve wisdom that has already been there before colonization and see how this past or still present wisdom can enlighten us about our own participation in international relations and how international relations have evolved over hundreds of years. So um, to do that, I go back to the classic and read history of political thought in Chinese and come to the idea of a quite popular notion called Tianxia, um, widely considered being Confucian. But in my own reading, I think Tianxia is much broader than just Confucianism. However, after Han Dynasty, maybe 200 BC, Confucianism became the dominant orthodox ideology in pre-modern China. People tend to forget that the Tianxia has been an idea shared by almost all pre-modern thinkers before Han Dynasty. Exactly because it was shared by almost all pre-modern thinkers, that gives you the impression that Tianxia is not about a norm. Most people, when they discuss Tianxia today, consider Tianxia as a norm, as a Confucian norm, how to guide Chinese foreign policy, how to guide us look at the world, so that we understand the proper relationship to be promoted from this Tianxia point of view. But I find once I find that most pre-modern thinkers accept Tianxia as a kind of a bare necessities, is something inevitable. Uh, that gives me the clue that Tianxia is not about norm. Tianxia is about a law, a law that nobody can avoid. Everybody has to face this law and try to figure out a way to deal with the law. And for that reason, I try to translate this notion of this notion of Tianxia um, into some kind of a prototype statement. I consider Tianxia being a system in which all are bound to be related. So it's not a choice. It's everyone has to be related in one way or another. And Tianxia was translated by the Christian missionary, something like all enter heaven, which I think was a quite good translation from the point of view at that time. Um, all being related, which is not anything really exotic, I think. But that connotes a possible connection with Christian world, for example, or with other cosmological perspectives. They all consider the relationship between humans, their natural environment, and the supernatural forces which human beliefs control or provide enlightenment to their lives. So this is the relationship between cosmology, human beings, their living environment. So, so all under heaven, meaning everyone has to be related in one way or another, consciously or not. And this is because, from the Tianxia point of view, uh, heaven provides a necessity for all living force to survive the natural environment. So everyone, by definition, is related. The problem then, of course, for pre-modern thinkers is how to cope with this necessity or inevitability of being related to everyone else and to the nature and the supernatural forces. And that's where the school of thoughts become competitive and kind of a rivaling each other. They all try to convince leaders and their students what's the best way to cope with this law that all have to be related. But then you don't know how you can be related to a stranger. Someone come up in front of you, you don't know them. So you have to figure out a way to demonstrate your relationship. And this is what the book is all about, to see how Confucianism trying to resolve the puzzle, how people are related. And Confucian way, of course, is a way that to make every self to be accepted by the world. So I start the book by defining Tianxia as a system of all are bound to be related. And then I proceed to see how this has been executed in the Confucian system, which is to create all kinds of roles so that strangers, through role taking and role making, they become related, or they demonstrate they are properly related. Then, of course, if you have roles prescribed for the strangers, then you will see strangers also trying to prescribe role for us to play. So there has to be negotiation. The bottom line is to make sure that the world accept us. If the world accept us, that means we belong to the world. We belong to the same world, but we belong to the same world in different ways. We don't want to know how people belong to the world in different ways, because that would ruin the relationship. That would cause you anxiety towards different ways of belonging, that you become strangers again. So roles are created so that the people feel comfortable with one another as long as they play their role properly, roles that are accepted to the other side. If the roles we prescribe for others are correctly played, then we feel safe. If the roles we prescribe for others are not accepted, then we have to try to play the roles others prescribe for us, at least in a minimal way that make us safely accepted by the other side. So I in the first two sections, by philosophically trying to show how Confucianism um, sort of manipulate this discourse so that it becomes convincing that everyone is related, and also how strategically Confucianism advised people to get themselves accepted by a world of strangers. That's the first section. And the second section, I began to ask what would happen if people refuse to take if people refuse to take their roles. Um, then you will have to sometimes that's we read in chapter 3 and chapter 4. We studies first of all, when roles are taken, what would happen? When roles are refused, what would happen? And then I proceed into chapter 5, specifically discussing when roles are rejected. What would Confucianism advise us to do? Um, the chapters talk about patience, and strategic patience is something that not widely discussed in the IR literatures. Most people would consider patience is basically instrumental to achieve things that are not achievable at the present time. So we'll wait for the right time and accumulate sufficient power or capacity to achieve what we fail to achieve. So we have to be patient and wait until the right time comes. But Confucian notion of patience is not about waiting for the right time to achieve what is not achievable at the present time. Confucian patience seems to me is a way to maintain relationship so that we don't have to resolve um, our differences. We let the difference drag on forever, since nothing can exist in the world forever. Whatever difference we have will eventually change. We may become less anxious, less about our difference, or because the world evolved, we adopt other means of life. So difference is no longer important for us. So patience is important not because that will allow us to prepare ourselves better to achieve something that is beyond our capacity, but is to maintain relationship uh, so that we are still related, even though we appear to be very different. We appear to have strong disputes over certain things. We could even fight each other, but we still be related because we are not imposing on the others a solution that the other cannot accept. We only try to demonstrate through confrontation that we maintain our role. And this involves, of course, a lot of emotional mobilizations. That's what's discussed in earlier chapter 4. Then after chapter 5, I continue to um, explore the mechanism of dealing with strangers. If we cannot find a way to resolve our difference, and the patience um, um, doesn't help very much. So I discussed friendship, and I realized what I think most people who study Confucian ethics has failed to realize, that is, friendship is a dangerous thing for Confucianism because friendships rely on gift giving. If you provide gift in order to maintain friendship, then your intimacy could ruin your role consciousness because you become so intimate. You could go out and drink together, you have pork together, you eat together, you play together, then you forgot all about this hierarchical role playing that keep everyone in the right place so um, they don't have to interrogate each other about their differences. um, so friendship is very important to get ourselves accepted by the other side. But friendship is a very dangerous thing. So chapter 6 talk about this irony that friendship is inevitable because we want to get ourselves accepted, but friendship relies on rituals and um, gift giving particularly. So friendship becomes very important. And then in chapter 7, I continue to talk about whether or not this Confucian way to make China exceptional in the world. A lot of literature on exceptionalism compare Chinese exceptionalism with American exceptionalism. I disagree with that. I don't think there is exceptionalism in the Chinese foreign policy or international relation thinking. I think exceptionalism is something um, as dangerous as friendship. So exceptionalism is something that Chinese foreign policy will try to avoid. Um, so chapter 7 talks about how China tried to make Chinese foreign policy maker try to make exceptions for other countries so that other countries find a lot of leeway uh, to avoid the rules and norms and values so they can deal with China in a materialist way. So China and the other party would uh, could settle down uh, over their differences, differences over ideology, religious beliefs, ethnicities, language, all those kind of things that could create a cleavage between them. So that's chapter 7. After that, in the third section, I discuss the misunderstanding between Confucianism and liberalism and what that could cost and how Chinese foreign policy deal with that successfully or unsuccessfully. And the last two chapters, I discuss how this idea of this necessity or are bound to be related affect Chinese foreign policy toward the global south across Taiwan Strait. Um, uh, so I had the last section dealing with both U.S.-China relations and China's strategy of um, Tianxia in the other parts of the world. So that basically concludes the book. So I guess in a nutshell, the book is about how Confucianism, once become the orthodox in the Chinese world, has guided policymakers in domestic affairs as well as in international affairs to get China, in the international sense, accepted by the world and get a Chinese government authority accepted by its own population through various means. Um, Successfully or unsuccessfully, and how that could be understood or misunderstood by the other parties sharing Confucianism or not sharing Confucianism. So I guess that's what I want to do in the book to somehow deconstruct Confucianism not as a norm, but as a skill to deal with the bare necessity of everyone bound to be related. I think I stop here.